What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the first ever Driven podcast. We're going to talk about sales, motivation. What else, Zane?
Sales, motivation, mindset, what you would need to be successful in an industry that is profitable. Solar, it doesn't matter. Solar, pest control, alarms. Our industry right now is solar. It's best industry to be in. That's just what we're going to focus on. Everything from setting appointments to closing deals to finding new deals to recruiting.
The whole person life paradigm. We're going to talk about everything sales related, outside of sales, how to improve everything. So we just want to get our voice out there and kind of, take over the space because there's so much content out there that while it's good, I know it could be a lot better. So we just want to push that edge where we can motivate people more. And today we have Zane. He came into the solar industry with us not too long ago. How long ago would you say?
Started doing solar in October of 2023, so I've been doing about 5 months now.
5 months.
5 months.
And Zane made a transition from, brand new to the industry, knows nothing about sales. How old were you?
I am and was 19 years old.
So at 19, he comes into the industry not knowing anything, and he recently, about a month ago, made the full transition over to closing. So he went from setting appointments, just knocking on doors, setting appointments, all the way to perfecting the craft and closing deals. So I think one of the things we want to talk about today is how you made that transition over from starting out fresh into the sales industry,
Yeah.
solar industry, right?
hmm
And how you made it to being a closer,
Well,
right?
first of all, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be one of those people that can do sales. And so that's the biggest thing, and especially in transitioning from setting to closing. All sales in and of itself is hard, right? Not physically, not in what's it called, not in uh, exercise, not in practice, but it's hard and mental, right? So when I was setting, it was very simple, right? You just knock on the door, set the appointment,
Right.
text the details to a closer, close the deal. You don't have to worry about, is my red line high enough? What are the adders for this deal? Do they need an MPU? Stuff like that. The stuff that most people don't talk about. So just in terms of setting the closing, it's like when you're brand new to the industry, you start right here, and then you learn a little bit more when you start to set. But closing is a big, big gap in between actually getting deals and just not getting deals.
Yeah.
And so that's what really was standing out to me when I moved into closing was I felt like my skill set in terms of a whole person was a lot bigger and a lot stronger when I moved into closing. Because closing is
Mm.
an actual skill. As we all know, nobody's born a closer. It's something that you do have to learn and mess up and fail a bunch of times, just like knocking doors, until you get good at it.
100%. And I think that's like a big separator from what a lot of people think about, the industry. A lot of people they want to go straight into closing day one,
Right,
but
right.
they don't realize it's a specific set of skills that you need to develop over time. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't have the humility to start out setting appointments, figure out how to set appointments
Right.
where you have the opportunities to close,
Of course.
right?
And so that's the thing, right? You'll see all this content about closers and, you know, oh, I want to be a big closer. I want to close 20 deals a month. But closing is a lot less glamorous in reality than it is on Instagram.
100%.
So you'll see the videos of people in the house signing the documents and they're like, oh my God, he's such a badass, right? But in all reality, closing is the art of doing small little simple steps to progress the sale forward, and it's not very glamorous.
Yeah.
It's really a big headache. It's a lot bigger of a headache when you're closing deals than setting the appointment.
And I think people kind of like,
And people don't really see that.
yeah, they underestimate it because what do they see? They're like, oh, it's 8,000, 7,000 for a deal. I want to go do that, right?
Exactly.
But then they don't
Exactly.
realize there's a lot of technical factors behind it. You have to know everything about building a proposal, qualifying, loans,
The money's what's appealing to people.
right? And people want to do that and they want to skip the steps. But I feel like the way you took the approach, which is the program that we have, right?
Right.
You took the humble approach, right? Is
Yeah.
hey, I don't know enough about closing right now,
Right.
so I'm gonna take the humble approach and I'm gonna start out setting appointments.
I
And then
mean,
what you did is you started going to every single appointment that you set and you watched like me close a bunch of your deals,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I still remember the first deal I sat in on. It was in Plano, Texas, Anna. And so we could both get into Anna's house, and you start talking to him, like trying to close the deal. And I was talking, and I remember you would tap me on my knee. And at the time, I didn't know that
I
means like, shh, be quiet. And so I was like, why is he tapping me
was
on the knee?
like, I was like,
Is this a good thing? Is this a
like,
bad thing? I was like, is he tapping me because it's a great deal that's about to go forward? But he's like, no. Shh. And then you pulled out your phone in the middle of the deal, and you text me like, hey, be quiet.
yeah,
And so that's another thing I had to learn, right? Was let them close. You
yeah,
can't, two people can't close one deal, or at least they can, but it's a lot more mental on the customer. And
yeah,
so if they have two people coming at them at all angles, they don't have time to think. It's an instant, like, you just blew the deal. And so when I started closing, I quickly realized, the pause is very important. Letting
mm,
them ask questions is very important. You're not closing. A lot of people think of like Wolf of Wall Street, like, oh, like, hey, Luis, I need a yes or a no today. I'm not coming back. That's not how it is.
yeah.
In all reality, you're holding their hand and walking them through the process. Eventually, some people will let go of your hand. So what you don't do is you don't grab. You got to be peaceful.
Yeah.
You can't, the moment that they feel like, the moment the prospect feels like you are pressuring them into doing something they don't want to do, or they feel like you want something out of them, or they feel like you're manipulating them and you're not being truthful and completely honest with them and genuine with them, they instantly can tell and you blow the
The
deal.
sale is over.
The sale is over.
And I think that's why like a lot of people have gone into the solar industry. They see the glamour in it. They're like, I want to be a closer. I want to make high ticket
100K,
money.
100K months, you know what I'm saying?
And I think that that's honestly what's kind of like we've seen like a big shift in the industry where people are going into solar,
Right.
but we're also seeing a big, exit of a lot of people that didn't have the skill, right?
Exactly.
Especially what's happening here in the industries. One thing I've noticed is a lot of people have left the industry, not because the industry got bad or anything. It honestly is gotten way better than it was before.
It's at its all-time high.
It's an all-time high, but the reason people are leaving is because they lack the skills to set appointments and close deals. Because yeah, when there was a big wave of people going into solar, the reason people were going into solar because it was relatively easy
Right.
for someone with no skill to go close a new customer.
Exactly.
But then as a bunch of people kind of flooded the market,
Everybody knows about solar now.
everybody knows about solar. Customers are getting smarter. They're getting more competitive. They're doing research. And if you don't have the skills that are required, you're most likely not going to be able to cut
There's a lot
cut
of
the line, right?
I see that a lot of the times in solar. Like we'll have closers that have closed deals for years, but you're like, hey, what kind of inverters do you use? And he's like, what is an inverter? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And so it's not really. It's in the part of the market to where the experienced closers are going to eat more than everybody else, but the people that are not willing to learn and willing to grow are going to continue to fail. They're going to continue to leave the industry, and they're going to continue to do the same things that those type of people do. I
right.
mean, it's not just closing in solar, it's in general in life, If you're not willing to learn and you're not willing to grow, if you're not willing to expand and be open minded, the best salespeople, they know what they don't know. But the people that are in sales that can't make it in sales are the people that don't know what they don't know.
Yeah,
And they don't want to know what they don't know.
and I think that's important to note
You have
too.
to adapt in the industry.
You have to adapt, and that's one of the things we always talk about in our trainings. Be adaptable. Be ready to shift. Be ready to make any changes required
Right.
when selling, when getting better on the doors, closing deals. If we get a new app, if we get a new loan option,
Right.
if we get a new product option, if we get like a new, adder, whatever it is, be ready to adapt
Yeah,
and hit that target, right?
exactly.
The people that can't adapt, those are the people leaving the industry. You know what I mean? The people that are constantly adapt, it's sales. Things always change in sales.
What I like about
You know,
sales is just a reflection of life. So if you are a great learner and you're a growth mindset type of person, if you get into sales, it'll expound on that.
mm,
But if you're a loser, right? If you're a loser, you're just going to be a bigger loser in sales, right?
that's true.
And especially in sales, because you're not in sales. We take out the option to do the minimum effort, right?
Mm,
You have to put into it what you're going to want to put out of it, what you want to get out of it, right? And so a lot of the times with reps, they all want to close 20 deals a month. but they don't want to knock 20,000 doors in a month, right? Because I mean,
That's
we
how
all
it
know the
is.
math in solar, right? Most people say no, some people
So
say yes.
we know the math. Not a lot of people do the math, right?
Exactly. And so what you see on Instagram isn't true. Everybody's not getting 3 or 4 appointments back to back, right? The math in solar is a lot lower than what they'll make it seem like in Instagram. And so new reps come in, they look at this content that's being put out. Not gonna say any names, but they look at this content, right? And they think, oh, solar's so easy. I just have to say this. Oh, I just have to use this word track. But it's not a word track. It's
It's not that
it's
simple.
not every door. It's simply volume. So especially, and this is another thing I wanted to cover, in sales and in life, there's people that hear that 99% of the people are going to say no to solar, and they think, man, why would I get into solar if 99% of people say no?
Mhm.
And then there's people that like me and you that came into solar, and you're like, you mean to tell me I just had to go 100 doors and I'll get a deal? It's
And a lot of people don't realize the math.
it's
And
the
I feel
mindset.
like on Instagram, Facebook, it's so hyped up on potential.
It is.
And I'm so against potential. You know what I mean? And I
Exactly.
think that's one of the biggest things that helped me recruit more recruits ever in my 10-year career in sales
Right.
is selling on the hard reality. Because
Right.
a lot of times you will attract a lot of people with like the flashy things and the cool videos,
Of course.
but then they hit the brick wall of like the reality of sales, and they did. And I think
Exactly.
on Instagram, everybody shows the highlights. Hey, look at
Everybody
this cool pitch that I got.
Everybody shows the McLarens and the big stacks of cash that aren't theirs, by the way, right? They build those satisfying TikTok clips, and so people immediately think solar isn't a grind.
Yeah.
They think, oh man, I'm in solar. All I got to do is just, hey, I'm gonna have a McLaren next month. No, you won't, right? And so that's the thing. It's a process, just like anything else, as well as there's a learning curve, right?
And you have
So
to put in the work.
you have to put in the work.
Well,
There's
let
no
me
getting
ask you
around the
this,
work.
Zane. What, obviously, like the first thing you figured out how to do, and the reason why you're closing deals now, is because you learned the skill of setting appointments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What's it take to set an appointment? Because that's probably like one of the biggest things we should talk about is be real about the industry, especially in solar,
Setting
right?
appointments? Okay, you mean what does it take like to like actually set the appointment or
Yeah,
like
like
mentally?
what is the work involved like to consistently set high quality appointments? Like what does a day to day look like for you in solar?
So I'll just pick a neighborhood, right? Not a lot of trees. Obviously, you don't want to walk 7 houses down for every door you can knock, right? And so I pick a neighborhood, and then I go through the neighborhood on a Monday at 1 o'clock, right? And I go talk to all the people that are elderly, that work from home, that aren't at work that day, and I'll get an appointment, maybe 2 appointments, and then I'll wait until 5 or 6 p.m. and I'll go back and run the same route again, right? And then on Saturdays I go back and run the same round again in that same neighborhood, and I repeat the process over and over again.
Over and
So
over.
that way you can fully squeeze the juice out of a neighborhood, as well as you can talk to the highest quality homeowners, right?
How
Because
many hours a week are you putting in? How many days a week?
I don't know about hours, but I would go from 12 to 8, 12 till sundown, right? Maybe an hour past dark,
How many days a week?
Monday to Saturday.
Monday through Saturday.
I'm putting up at least 800 doors a week.
And I think that's like the biggest misconception. A lot of people when they get into solar, they have this idea that they're gonna knock or they're gonna work for an hour and they're gonna
They
make
think it's a
8 grand a
part-time
day.
job.
And they treat it like a part-time job, right?
And that's the way TikTok makes it seem. Like you'll look at the Instagram clip of the young kid setting an appointment and then closing the deal the next day, and boom, he just made $8,000 in 30 minutes.
But
But in reality, to get to that 30 minutes, it took 6 hours.
and people don't show that on the social medias, right?
And that's what we're gonna show. We
Yeah,
have to show
we
that.
want to show the reality of it. Part of the reason we're doing this podcast is just to be real, kind of elevate the industry to a whole different level.
Show the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, because that's really what it is. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times people do treat it like a part-time job, right?
Hmm.
Especially sales. I feel like the industry is shifting so much
Mm-hmm.
where you used to have people doing online leads, people doing call centers, calling people, and that stuff used to work, and people used to get deals out of those, and it used to be profitable. But the market is shifting where the people that are really dominating in solar are the people that know how to go door to door, how to consistently grind on the doors.
Right.
The market is shifting to that. We had a big amount of people go into solar and kind of saturate the market.
Yeah.
And they kind of made a lot of people kind of just closed off to solar right away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now the people that are going to capitalize on that and that momentum is the people that know how to go door to door.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can get deals cold calling. You can get deals
100%.
however, right? But it's just a thing of how do you maximize your efficiency for your effort, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get the most output from your input? And it's just conversion rates. It's simple math, right? 1,000 cold calls, one appointment, or at least one solid appointment, right? 1,000. And how long is it going to take you to call 1,000 people? All day, right? But 100 doors, you get one appointment, right? And so the conversion rates are a lot higher. The only thing about it is it takes work to get to the highest conversion rate and to give you your best efficiency for your effort. And most people, like I've don't get me wrong, I've had days in solar where I didn't get any appointments and I went home and I checked Samsung Health because I don't have an iPhone yet, right? I checked Samsung Health and I walked 10 miles that day and I'm just beat, I'm tired. I'm like, man, why did I do this, right? But then you go back the next day and you realize why you do it because you get those appointments, you get the leads.
Yeah.
But beyond all the money, all the appointments, all the leads, all the mindset, it's really just a cool experience to be able to help people out and profit heavily when doing so.
Right.
There's no other industry that you can think of that only benefits the customer that you can get paid heavily off of.
Right.
Healthcare doesn't do that. Car insurance doesn't do that.
Pest control doesn't
Pest
do that.
control.
Alarms doesn't do that.
Alarms don't really do that. Come on. How
Like,
many,
yeah, if
how
you
many
think
people get
about,
broken into and how well is the alarm really helping, right? And I mean,
that's
I don't know
true.
about alarms, but in solar, we can actually affect the lives of the people that we can help.
Right.
It's the only product in human history that is specifically designed and created to help people save money. The only thing.
Yeah, and it's like if it's done right, right? Because I feel
Of
like
course.
there's a lot of people doing it wrong in the industry, and I don't
Yeah.
want to. We're not gonna mention any names, but there's definitely, and that's why like the average new person can't jump right into the industry is because there's people that have done solar wrong to some homeowners, and that's created a bad rep, right?
A lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth with the
Yeah,
solar.
because of what some people have done, and I know plenty of people that have set up really messed up systems, right?
Exactly.
And but also there's good, right? There is a good to solar, right?
Of
Instead of
course.
if it, when solar is done right, we're taking away, you
Their power
know,
bill.
a bill. We're lowering someone's monthly expenses versus every other product in the market right now. Pest control, alarms, cars, phones, vacuum
You're
cleaners.
spending
You're
money.
adding a bill to a customer, right? So like, for sure, this is the best industry to be in if you're in sales, because especially like if I used to sell pest control, right, for a long time. And one of the big shifts that I see in the industry, instead of pushing, the number of accounts being sold,
Right.
they're pushing the revenue sold.
Exactly.
And I see reps like flexing, oh, we just sold $1,000 pest control account for the same service that they've been doing, for years.
Right.
And it's like, is that something that I want to get behind, like
Exactly.
supercharging customers, or do I want to make an impact helping a homeowner save on his monthly electric bill, put him in a better
Right.
situation than they were before?
What really is going to help the homeowner, right? Like 84-year-old Mr. Myers, right?
Yeah,
That's paying $600 in electric bill. You knock on his door, now he's paying 700, 800 with the pest control, right? Or we can put him at $224 by putting panels on his roof.
and it's just a no-brainer, especially with all the new programs that we have. Solar is for sure the most definite best sales industry to be in.
It's the most no-brainer of all the industries.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, especially like new reps coming into the solar industry, reps coming in for pest control, alarms, and other industries, satellite,
Satellite.
they struggle a little bit. They struggle a little bit because there's a skill gap, right?
Yeah.
I see
It
plenty of
takes
pest control guys coming in trying to close deals and they get wrecked because just like you said, there's a skill gap.
it takes skill to close a solar deal. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And
And I
so
think like the biggest thing too is a lot of pride too, right?
exactly.
Because pest control reps, they want the glory, right? Especially some of the high performing reps that try to come over. They want the glory of like, hey, I closed that deal. But it's like, hey, you don't have that skill yet. Like,
Right.
have some humility, go door to door, set appointments, and go watch, someone that knows how to close a deal, knows everything about equipment. Have them go close the deal,
Of course.
and you learn because that's how you learn how to close,
It's like if you
right?
speak English, right? You're not going to learn Spanish by going and trying to speak Spanish. You're going to have to learn the
Right.
letters. You're going to learn the alphabet. You're going to learn hola, ¿cómo estás? Before you can learn the whole spectrum of the language, right? And so learning solar is just like learning anything else, right? You have
Yeah.
to be willing to start from the bottom and then eventually make your way to the top,
Right.
right? So you
And
can't
do it slowly, right?
exactly,
Like people that are, especially right now with how saturated the market is, people trying to come in and close right away,
exactly.
where the skill gap is here and they're starting right
They're
here.
getting hit with the adders and then they're like they sold it too low and it's crazy.
And I think that's one of the things you did really well is you had humility and you're like, okay, I don't know a lot about solar.
Hmm.
Let me absorb as much as I can. But on the same side, I always see reps that they're so anxious
The
to close
ego. It's the
deals.
ego.
They're like, oh, I set one appointment. I'm gonna hold it, cherish it for dear life,
Right.
and like
Do it.
let me go close it. It's like you don't even know how to make a proposal.
Exactly.
You don't know how to like talk about equipment contracts. Have you read the contract? No, you haven't read the. Okay, so why do you want to go close it?
They just want
Right?
the money. They have the ego. They
And
want to
it's
be
like
the closer.
I get it. There's a lot of money, but it's like that's why closers get paid the amount that they get paid because they can finish the deal to the finish line, right? And setting is great too. Like the money in setting is great,
Yeah,
and it's like you gotta leverage what you have and the knowledge that you have and
of course.
make that slow transition.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
of
Because if
course.
once you make that transition, like what you make yesterday,
I made $10,000
$10,000 at 19 years old, closing
in 3 hours.
three hours. And
Yeah.
obviously it wasn't 3 hours because it took a long time to prospect, right?
Well, yeah. Well, okay.
Let's be real, you know?
If we're being real, it was about 40 degrees 2 days ago, and I was not feeling good. This is what they don't tell you about sales, y'all. Some days you don't want to go out there and knock doors, right? And so I'm like, you know what? I don't care how this goes. I know I don't want to do this. I want to go home, but I'm gonna get an appointment before I go home.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's one of those days where I knocked 6 doors, and then on the seventh door, I talked to a sweet Malaysian lady who was interested in solar, and so I closed the deal the next day, right? And
Boom.
so they don't tell you about the days where you just want to go home. So you say, man, if I get one thing, so help me God, I'm going home, right? And it's hard for reps to understand, like people that are coming into the industry, it's hard to understand, like you have to have the discipline to say no to yourself. Most
Yeah.
people can't say no to themselves. And so how can you, in all reality, be successful at something if you listen to yourself? If you listen to every complaint that you're making to yourself, you will never progress. Because I mean, I'll see it all the time. Like a rep will come in, they're great, they have all the skills, all the talent necessary.
Social, they can talk really
Exactly.
well, positive.
Just like me, right? But the only difference is on that cold day where it's rainy and they forgot their portable charger and their phone's about to die, they're like, you know what? Pack it up, let's go home, right? But me, I'm willing to put in one more door.
One more door.
All you don't need 100 more doors, or you might,
Yeah.
but look at it as one more door.
That's a big point because I see that happen all the time.
Right.
People can't push past the stuff that's uncomfortable, right?
Exactly.
It's like obviously, a lot of people glamorize it. It's like, oh look, I bought a really cool watch. It's awesome. Come do solar, and they're like, okay, let's go do solar. And then they knock for 30 minutes. They get uncomfortable. They're like, let's go home. They quit, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's like the biggest thing to like understand is like the people that are performing at a really high level, they can keep going when it's 100, 120 degrees outside, when it's freaking cold outside, your fingers are freezing off, and you're like, hey, my goal is to knock 100 doors today.
Right.
I'm gonna go knock 100 doors, whether I get appointments or not.
Honestly, the cold days and the hot days are easy to overcome. What's the hardest to overcome with the sales, especially for these reps, right, is the hard nose, right?
Mm,
The nose where like the homeowner is super sweet, you tell them solar. People always associate when they come into the industry, I'm not interested in solar, as in, no, I don't want to talk to you, right? And so the mental negativity, it's almost like it puts them at the same vibe as someone saying like I don't really like you and then closing the
right.
door, right? And so what you have to learn is to compartmentalize. That's very important in sales as well as in solar, right? You have to compartmentalize your emotions, b your thoughts. You have to be very careful of what you let yourself think about when you're walking to the next door.
Yeah.
Because if you get no, 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 what you're thinking about on the next door is what if they say no? I'm gonna just move to the next door. But in all
Yeah, it's
reality,
like the majority of people, like if you're negative on the doors,
you're wasting time.
you're dead in the water.
You're wasting
Don't even
time.
try door to door. because we're operating on a what, like a very low percentage, 97% on a real percentage, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, like there's times where I go knock 10 doors and I get 5 deals out of those 10 doors, right? But that comes with skill. But
It
the
comes with
majority,
skill and it's a luck factor.
and it's a luck factor, right? Just talk to the right person at the right time, right? But also new reps when they're coming into the industry, their ratio is like out of 100 doors, they're gonna have 3 good conversations, right?
Exactly.
So you have to really learn how to look at the positive and look for the great things to train your mind to look for the great things. Because if you focus on the negative, it's going to be all around you. 97% of people are going to say no. 3% are
Exactly.
going to be good. So if you try to focus on the negative, don't even try because you're going to get caught up in the negative.
Exactly. Another thing, especially it's just compartmentalization, right?
Yeah.
So when you're at work, don't think about your bills, right? Don't think about, hey, I need to get a deal or I'm not going to be able to live, right? And so a lot of the times that's what reps, like it's hard to do that, right?
Right.
It's hard to say, man, I need $2,000 for my rent in the next 3 days. And if I don't get it, I'm probably going to be late on my rent. And I've been there, right? I've seen that. I've done that in sales inside of the last 5 months, right?
When you first started, it's like,
And what
am
I've
I going to
learned,
get a paycheck?
and what I've learned
Right.
is it doesn't benefit you to think about all the reasons you need the money as it does to just go do the job,
Right.
right? And so you have to mentally separate yourself, your day-to-day life, from your door knocking, right? So when you're knocking doors, just be in the moment.
Yeah.
And another thing is actively knock doors. Don't be on Instagram scrolling to the next door. Actively go talk to this homeowner. Okay, boom, go talk to the next homeowner.
Right.
A lot of the times, that's why people don't get deals, is because they're just messing around. They're walking slow. They don't have their head up. By the time they get
They're
to the
not
door,
intentional.
they're not intentional, right? So they get to the door. They're like, "Hey, Mr. Homeowner, how you doing? I do solar. You want solar?" And then when they're almost surprised when they say no. Like it's crazy. Like how are you surprised?
They're not prepared. They don't have the right training.
Exactly.
And I think my mindset is super simple with door to door over the last 10 years. Like, yeah, that's a big point. It's like, obviously, there's hundreds of things going on in your life at any single point. But I think, like, the best way to go about it is to make it super simple. Okay, what's my action for today? I got to go knock 100 doors and I got to go to all the appointments that I have.
Yeah.
That's my focus, right? But at the moment you start thinking about, oh, I got all these things I got to do back at home, it just makes it super complicated. So make it super simple.
Exactly.
Don't think about like the other things you can't control. Like in the
And the thing
moment,
about it is, your mind will trick you, right? It's very easy.
yeah,
You're gonna go knock. You're like, you know what? This is the plan for today. I'm gonna go knock 100 doors. I'm gonna get one appointment. I'm gonna go home. It's gonna be fine. You get to door 30, and your brain instantly goes, you know what? I'm thirsty. Let's get some water. I
the
think,
gas
you know
station's
what?
right around the
You know
corner.
what? You know what? Let's go get some water. It'll be fine. I'll go sit at QT. Actually, you know what? While I'm getting water, I'm a little bit hungry. I don't want to be hungry on the doors, right? So you go back to the doors and you're like, you know what? Now my breath stinks, so I should just go get some gum, right?
You know
And
what? I'm kind of
there's
tired.
always a
Let me go take
reason.
a nap.
There's always a reason to not knock, and we've been there before.
Yeah,
I know you've gone home early before. Eventually, I've done it before, and it's honestly, you go home and you're like, why did I do that?
yeah. What did I do that?
Like
I
my
I
bills
remember
aren't paid.
one time I was knocking on a Saturday, and when I first started in the industry, I didn't have a car,
Yeah, same.
and we were driving an hour out to area, and my car driver, he dropped me off in an area out in Lubbock, Texas, and like Saturday, like nine in the morning. I was on the doors, and then I didn't get picked up till like 9 p.m. at night.
Golly.
And then and that day I had a really good day. I sold 4 deals. I came out to the car. I worked hard all day. I got 4 deals, and then my car driver picks me up. I'm not gonna say who it was, but he picks me up and he was just laughing. It's like he's laughing. I'm like, hey, what's so funny, dude? He's like, dude, I just sat in the car all day at the gas station and I watched Netflix in the car all day, which is insane, right?
Right.
It's like I feel like in door-to-door sales, it's all about self-discipline, right?
100%.
Like staying committed, like whether or not it's cold, set those simple goals
Of course.
and go do them no matter what, right?
And a lot of people, especially in the West and America and Texas, everywhere, right?
Yeah,
A lot of people are not capable of holding themselves accountable.
100%.
And that's why we have certain issues, right? I'm not going to get into anything else, right? But it's why people aren't allowing themselves to be successful. Because it's easy to go work at Walmart. I used to work at Starbucks, right? Starbucks is the easiest job alive. I don't care who you are, and I know all the people that work at Starbucks are going to see this. It's not a hard job, right? Like you think the customers are bad, they're not, right? It's an easy job. You simply make lattes and take orders, right? But it's hard when you're your own boss and you have to set your own standards, right? And you have to set your own expectations for yourself. Because the thing about it is, people will rather do things that they would face consequences for if they didn't do them than what would benefit them, right?
Mm.
So it's a lot easier for someone to be like, you know what, I should go knock doors because if I don't, Luis will be mad at me. But if I'm like, you know what, I should go knock doors because I might get a deal, like mentally, humans are like that. They would
They're
rather,
motivated more by the pain of
exactly.
losing versus the
And that's why people buy.
motivation of winning.
Like it's the same way people buy. They buy because they're afraid of paying too much money for electricity. And so
Exactly.
a lot of the times reps, because there's no consequences for taking no action, they take no action because like what are you gonna do? Get in trouble
That's
with
true.
yourself?
There is no
You
consequences for
can't.
not getting the deal.
Most people cannot put themselves in trouble for things that they don't do to themselves because most people have the mindset of, man, if I don't do this, it only doesn't benefit me. So why do I even care if I don't do it, right? And so most people they don't want to change, they don't want to improve, they don't want to get better, and if they do want it, they don't want it enough to enforce change, to enforce standards, to enforce adaptability.
And I think that's why we're growing so fast as a team. Is
Mm,
because we focus on the whole life paradigm.
exactly.
Financial, sales, discipline, mentality, motivation, relationships outside of work, outside of activities, gym, stuff like that. Like we focus on the whole person because that amplifies everything in sales,
Exactly.
right? And I think a lot of people when they go into sales, they don't realize how much of a better person you have to be every day
Exactly.
to produce at a high level. When I used to work at Walmart, it was a very like once you figure out how to do the job,
It's easy.
it's easy. You literally do not have to think about the job. You show up and you can just kind of do it, kind of not do it, and you're still gonna get paid the same, right? But
Exactly.
this job, it forces you to be a manager and kind of like babysit yourself, right?
Exactly.
Because and if you're not a good babysitter, if you don't know how to manage yourself, you end up not doing very well, right?
At all.
Because what does the body want to do? The body wants to rest. It wants to hang out, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like sales is on the extreme side of that.
It's on the opposite end,
It's
right?
on the opposite side of
So
comfortable,
like
right?
right now, me and you, we're really comfortable because we're just sitting on a couch making a podcast, right?
Right.
But what my brain in sales is telling me is like, man, I want to go knock some
I need to
doors.
be on the
I
doors,
feel I feel I feel anxious right now because I'm like, what if I could have gotten a deal? What if I'm talking to the
right?
wrong person, right? No offense to you, Luis, but I would rather talk to a homeowner right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's the
And that's how it has to be.
yep.
In order to be successful inside of sales, you can never be satisfied with what you've already done, right? Because at the
Yep.
end of the day, it doesn't exist after it happened, right? And so you always have to have a one more mentality.
And
It's
like
very important.
it's got to be like a guaranteed every single day because I see so many reps coming into the industry. What do? They put in all this effort right at the beginning. They work 3 days. They get a $6,000
They
deal.
burn out
And what do they do the next day?
instantly. They burn out.
No, they just take a rest day and then they take
Exactly.
another one. They're like, oh, I got 6,000 in the bag, so I gotta chill.
That's a big problem.
Next thing you know, they're a week out,
And
and then
solar,
something happens. That deal cancels. Now their motivation's gone. They're like, oh, solar didn't work out for me.
yeah. And now in solar, the biggest problem is, and I'm sure I've heard other people say this, we get paid too much. So when you make $6,000 on a deal and your monthly expenses are $3,000, you're like, man, I don't need to do nothing anymore. I'll just take the week off. And so you take off a day, you take off 2 days. You're like, you know what? I want to go make more money, right? And then you go out there, and then boom, 3 weeks, no deal. What happened, right?
Nothing.
And so consistency is key, right?
Consistency is the biggest key in sales that no one even talks about, right? We do get paid a lot. I see sellers all the time. I close their deal and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're working tomorrow? Tomorrow?"
Right.
They're like, "No, I'm gonna hang out."
Yes, yes, and I'm guilty of that when I first started. When I got my first $2,000 deal, I remember I had got the deal. I was like, you know what? All this work's paid off. I'm gonna be fine. Quit my job at Starbucks, sit on the couch, right? And they canceled on me. And so,
Dang,
boom. And so another thing,
dang.
paradigm shift in my life, which really kind of put the fire underneath me to do sales, is I moved out of my dad's house, right? Uh, I knew that I wasn't going to be successful unless I was forced to be successful, right? And so I kind of burned the boats in terms of I got my own place to live, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations to me, by the way. I'm proud of myself.
Congrats.
I'm 19 and I gave my mom a place to live, right?
Let's
And
go.
so, with that being said, I have to work or else my mom will not have a place to live,
Yeah.
right? So, doing what is relative to why you do it, right? And so, a lot of the reps, they are living with their parents, they don't have any bills, they eat for free, you know what
You
I'm
got
saying?
nothing to lose. If you work, great. If you don't work, great.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly, and that's why we've seen a lot of reps come in that live at their mom's house, which is in the middle of some suburban town in
We don't want to
Texas.
say any names. We don't
That
want to say any
that's
names.
that's like $800,000 house they live in, right? They don't have any problem not making money, right? The whole family's done sales, they know what it takes, but they just can't do it. And
Dang.
that's the
We don't want
thing.
to say. Don't say any
I'm not
names.
gonna say any names, but you know what I'm saying, like
It's going on YouTube.
yeah, but no, and so that's the thing, right? Like they are too comfortable for their own good.
Right.
The best thing you can be in life is uncomfortable, unsatisfied. You have to be hungry. You have to want a deal.
Because now when the responsibility of rent falls on you, what do you
Yeah,
have to do? You
you
have to come up with the money,
you
right?
can't tell the landlord it was a slow month for sales. I'm sorry, he just doesn't listen. Trust me, I've tried, right? And so it's just one of those things where if you don't have a good why, then what you do will never be good enough.
And I think that's like a big question for a lot of new reps going into a sales job.
Right.
It's like, is this all sales commission? It's like, yeah, it is, right? And then they ask like, well, how often can I get a paycheck?
Yeah,
And that's completely up to you. You know,
exactly.
like if you want to get a paycheck, then go do whatever it takes to get a deal, right?
And I feel like that's what kind of set me apart from my class. So kind of when I got started, we had 40 reps come into the office, right? Big room, a bunch of chairs, really nice little office studio space. 40 people showed up, and at the end of a week, I was the only one standing, right? I was the only one that stayed, right?
Like,
I was like, where is everybody, right? I came in with a big
yeah.
class, right? And what really stood out for me was I didn't give up. I had the right reason, but
And you put in the work.
I
You put in the work.
but the reason behind it is really when you told me when because you were the one that ran the meeting when I went to recruiting, right?
Right.
You were like, it's 100% commission, and I saw everybody's face kind of go down, and I was like, but
Oh, shoot.
in my mind, what I was thinking is 100% commission. It's a good idea, right? Because I'm only being compensated for the value that I'm capable of providing, and so all the other people, I kind of watched them melt around me because they weren't confident that they can provide enough value. And in my mind, I'm like, why would you work any job if you don't think you can provide the job enough value to get paid for it, right? So everybody wants to make 10K a month, right? For low numbers, right?
Right.
Everybody wants to make 10K a month, but nobody wants to be worth 10K a month, right? And so when I first started, I already knew like I'm worth $1 million in solar, right? I'm worth $1 million. All I have to do is go show them, and I'll get the million right there. And so
That's
it's
good.
just a thing of, and I've never liked the idea. It's almost like slavery, right? Like if they give you an hourly wage, you need to be worth more than your hourly wage in order to make that wage, right? So I want to be getting paid what I'm worth and not what I provide divided by two, right?
That's true.
Like Starbucks, right?
And like that's the question, right? Like, is it a risk? Sales is not a risk if you put in the work. If you put in the work, you put in the required training, the required effort, it's not a risk at all.
Okay. I would say this.
100%.
I would say this. Sales is a risk, but a regular job is way more of a risk.
Dang.
Sales is
Because you can't control.
you gotta pick the risk you want. Do you want to risk working till you're 85 when Social Security is up to 85 when we get old, or do you want to make enough money? Do you want to go out there and hustle and find your own way and make your own money however you can? Do you want to go get it instead of having someone come hand it to you? Because I mean, you could hand anyone some money. You can give them a fish, but I would rather be the guy catching the fish, right?
Yeah, that
And
knows how
so
to fish.
and so it's really riskier to work a 9 to 5 for 40 years and then not know if you're going to be able to retire. I mean, we knock doors. We've seen the effects of Social Security, and it's frightening. It's frightening when you have 72-year-olds crying on their doorstep because they don't think they can afford to go solar because they're making so little money because they chose the less risky option of becoming an accountant, right? And then they retired,
60 grand
boom,
a year.
boom, and now
Fixed in income.
Social Security sending them like $1,200 a month, right? You can't live off of that,
I
right?
think that's like a
And
big thing that
and so
we see in the industry.
sales is a risk, but it just pick your risk, man.
Yeah.
Pick your risk. Do you want to risk being a slave for 60 years or being broke for 5, rich for 5?
Yeah. Because I think that's a big point that you brought up. Like, I feel like being inside of homes and talking to like homeowners every single day, I see like the bigger picture of like what's actually happening with the economy.
You hear about it in the news, but
Like,
it's
but
different when
yeah,
you
when
go
you
to the
talk to
house.
consistently talk to new homeowners throughout the different parts of the city, it's like, dang, like these people are really struggling to pay their bills. Like that just opens up
They
my
don't
mind.
instantly let on to it, but you can tell by their connotation, you
Yeah,
can tell by their aura that they need help, and that even though we give them the solar, it's the bigger picture that's pulling them down.
yeah,
It's the bigger picture of
and
the
that's what.
economy and how the world works to where some people they don't benefit.
Yeah,
They don't benefit at all. Some people are living really harsh lives, and a lot of those people have the potential, have the ability to live a good life, but they will not apply themselves enough because they've been taught that they need to settle for less.
mm,
Most people in America have been taught you need to settle for less, so that way if you take this big risk and you lose it, you lose a lot. I would honestly rather take a bunch of big losses to win than to take a bunch of little wins to eventually lose.
and I believe the same thing. I would rather, bet on myself 1,000 times
Of course,
than to bet on someone else paying me a fixed income every single month.
it's like Mark Cuban said, I would rather make $80,000 a year working for myself than $700,000 a year working for somebody else.
Somebody else, especially like I think the biggest thing that I learned in the sales industry over a long period of time is that the more I progress as a person, discipline, work ethic, you know, skill, knowledge, training, recruiting, the more I expand my a level of skill in all those fields, the more my income has gone up every single year.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think for me,
It's a linear progression, right? You learn more, you make a little more. You learn a lot more, you make a lot more.
exactly,
Right? You stop learning, you don't make anything now.
you stop
It's
working,
a it's
you
a
make less.
it's like a plane, right? The moment you stop learning is the moment the plane's engines turn off and you start just skyrocketing towards the ground.
Game over.
Game over.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of people just want to go into sales just to get the money, but they forget that they have to evolve as a person. And a lot of
Exactly.
people don't want to do that. A lot of people just want a job where they don't have to think, and that's okay if like that's not something you want.
Of
I
course.
understand not everyone operates that same way, right?
Right.
Like anyone can get a job where you can step in and do the same thing over and over again, and you can. I call that the minimum brain effort
Right.
jobs,
Right.
where you have to do the bare minimum and you get a bare minimum paycheck.
Of
You know what I
course.
mean? But sales, I think it's like a maximum effort. How many deals can I bring into the industry? How many appointments can I bring in? How many deals can I close? How many recruits can I bring into any organization? I think sales is like it's like a very creative, kind of like a very like outgoing kind of a job where your job is to figure out how you can bring in as much business into whatever organization that you have as possible.
Of
And
course.
a lot of people don't do that, right? A lot of people kind of take it the easy way. They're like, let me just go try sales and kind of do it. It's like, no, if you're going to do sales, step on the gas.
Burn the boats.
Yeah, burn the boats, step on the gas, and go as
Burn the
fast as
boats.
you can. Like, don't, I'm like, because I tell people to recruit, and they're like, no, I don't want to recruit. It's
Right.
like, then what are you doing? Like, why are you in sales? Why
Well,
are you like in an expansive,
that's the thing, right?
sales industry?
There are people that would rather do a bunch of little things than one big thing, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that you actually coached me on very well when I first jumped into solar is like, hey, focus on doing one thing good before you mess up doing 5 things, right? If you're in 5 classes, would you rather get C's in all 5 or 1A? I'd rather get 1A, right? And so it's just a thing of don't spread yourself too thin. There's only so much of you
That's
to go
true.
around. There's only 12 hours in the day, right? You can't go do solar, drop shipping, e-com, crypto,
Because
forex.
remember when you first started, you're like, I'm gonna do sales, I'm gonna do real estate, I'm gonna do Bitcoin, I'm gonna
Yeah,
do
exactly.
e-commerce, and I was like,
Well,
hey,
no,
dude,
okay, not Bitcoin, not e-commerce, but
I forgot,
I was
but
like, I'm gonna do real estate,
you were like doing like trying to do like 5 different things, and what did I tell you?
spreading myself too thin.
I
Exactly,
was like, hey, drop all of them and just go do one thing. Like if you're gonna
exactly,
do real estate, go do real estate. If you're gonna do
Exactly.
solar, come do solar.
And don't get me wrong, I still plan on investing in real estate. That's just the smart way of doing things.
Yeah,
But I'm not going to be a realtor, right? Because all a realtor is, no disrespect to the realtors, you're just a salesman, but you just sell houses,
or
right?
salesman too.
Exactly.
But I think like especially nowadays on social media, like there's so many flashy things about everything that
Exactly.
like when we get like an average recruit coming in, brand new kid like 18, 19, they're like, oh yeah, I want to go into Bitcoin investing,
Yeah.
and it's like, hey dude, like the reality of it to get good at you can make great money in all of them,
Exactly.
but to get really good at it, you have to pick one thing
You
and
have to
invest
become
time,
you have to
effort,
become
energy.
obsessive.
Yeah, obsessive, yeah,
You have to be obsessed. If you're gonna do freaking Bitcoin, you got to be like, hey, I'm gonna do Bitcoin for the next 12 years, right?
and that's gonna
Every,
be your life for the next 12 years.
everybody wants to do tasks, right, that are 3 month tasks, 6 month tasks. But when you start talking in the scope of 10 years, like me and you, we might be in solar for 15 years. And who's to tell how much we'll make in that time?
Who knows?
But all we know is with this simple mindset that we have, right? If we apply ourselves every single day for the next 10 years, there's no possible way that the outcome will not be greater than the input, right?
100%.
And so,
And I think that's just like the answer, right? Instead of focusing on the cool things of what's popping,
what's
one
popping?
thing that I've been doing is just focusing on the things that I know produce results, and it's like the systems, right? The systems that we have in place.
Right,
The systems I have for myself, for recruiting, for the team, for training. I focus on the boring stuff, right? Like what do we need to control that we can fix every single day?
of
Those
course.
are the systems, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people want to come do solar for the cool things. They want to go do real estate for the cool things. But really, it all comes down to the boring things that you got to do every single day.
Everybody wants to tour the mansion and show the open house with the coffee, pull up in the Range Rover, but nobody talks about how that same realtor had to go get their license and how they had to show
Study
hundreds of houses and learn
150 hours.
so much legislation about real estate that'll make your brain pop, right? And so it's the same thing with solar, right? Everybody wants to see the video of the McLaren that's probably rented, right? Or the Aston Martin or the Lamborghini, whatever car it is, right? Everybody wants to see that, but nobody really cares about
Hey, the knocking, and I think that's what for me,
that's just knocking doors.
like a big shift that I've noticed in our team. I used to flex like the skyrise.
Right.
I used to flex the view. I used to flex like, hey, look, I'm out in this freaking cool pool. I'm out here traveling.